All right. I was watching, hilariously, scientist Richard Dawkins get in trouble online, and an alert reader noted that the people who were mad at this famous scientist were not themselves scientists. You know why I'm saying this. My book, Loser Think, talks about how people who have experience in different domains are more qualified to think productively, because you learn to think differently in different domains. And so, famous scientist and famous atheist, which doesn't matter to this story, but that's why he's famous, Richard Dawkins. I think what would be his field of science? Biology or more? I'm not sure exactly his scientific resume, but evolutionary biology is certainly a big part of it, plus other things, I'm sure. So he's talking about eugenics, the idea of breeding humans to have some improved qualities according to somebody's subjective opinion. And this is what Richard Dawkins says on the topic of that. Now keep in mind, he knows it's full of landmines. This is a really touchy topic. So he's going to go careful, and he's going to be very clear about what he says so he doesn't get in any trouble, all right? So watch the clarity of this statement. It's one thing to deplore eugenics on ideological, political, moral grounds. It's quite another to conclude that it wouldn't work in practice. Of course it would. It works for cows, horses, pigs, dogs, and roses. Why on earth wouldn't it work for humans? Facts ignore ideology. So his very first sentence is, it's a different topic if you're talking about the moral, ethical, political, ideological stuff. So he's telling you that what follows has nothing to do with that. Do you think that people who read his tweet took him exactly the way he said it, which is from a mechanical, factual perspective? Of course it would work. You could breed people to have different characteristics because you can do it with roses, you can do it with animals. Of course you could do it with people. It would just have issues on political, moral, ideological grounds. So here's the fun part. I'm going to read you some of the pushback, and then we're going to see if you can guess what kind of job they have, the person pushing back. All right, so a scientist clearly says it would work. Here's some pushback from a guy named Scott Lynch. He says, "You absolute pin-headed simpleton. It doesn't work in practice because too many of the goals turn out to be arbitrary fantasies, and too many of those fantasies are the pet projects of abusive bigots who F up any civilization and they get their hands on. Are you new here?" And then he uses another bad word. Okay, so he clearly didn't understand the point that the scientist was just saying scientifically it works. You can make up your own mind about the ethics and the practicality of it. What's his job? Author. Okay? So that's what the author says. Here's another comment. Let's see if you can guess the job. This is from Dan Hicks. He says, "This is racist trash, Richard. The analogy you draw here between the ideology of eugenics and the domestication of cows or horses is false, dangerous, and historically illiterate." Okay, so here's somebody who didn't understand the point at all. What kind of job does Dan Hicks have? Looks like college professor he studies art. He's an art anthropologist. His field is art and anthropology. Okay, here's another one. Here's another guy who just says, "It's time to delete this one, buddy." In other words, he doesn't even have to give the reasons. It's just so obvious. There's still time to delete this one, buddy. What job did the person who tweeted that have? Let's check. Musician. All right, so people are now noticing the correlation. None of the people who criticized Dawkins understood it. Nobody understood him to say, this is the stuff I'm not talking about, so let's not talk about it. Here's what I am talking about. If you'd like to talk about that, I'll talk about that. Does it work? But I'm not talking about this other stuff. And then three of his critics jump in because artists can't separate. Artists conflate, engineers and scientists separate. So if somebody is let's say a lawyer, economist, business person, scientist, if they've gone through one of those fields, they tend to isolate variables and say, okay, this one doesn't affect this one, let's look at them individually. Artists, musicians, and authors say everything affects everything else, it's all one big ball, you can't claim it doesn't matter that it's associated with this other thing. So you'll see that pretty commonly. All right. I believe that's just about all I had to talk about. Anything else going on today? Somebody said, I understood it, and it was really vile. What was? What was really vile that you understood? Was the vile part the part you agree with? Because if you're saying that Richard Dawkins' comment is vile, what part? Because he didn't make a comment on whether it was good or bad or practical or political or anything. He didn't make a comment. He just said it works. Do you disagree with the fact? Or do you think it's going to lead to the end of the world or something? All right. The truth is sometimes vile, people say. Yep. All right, so that's all I have for today. Yeah, we're all talking about President Trump doing a lap at the Daytona 500 in the Beast, the presidential car. I guess if that's what we're talking about, it's a good time if that's what we're talking about. Somebody asked if Yang is a possible VP pick. I would say no, because you want your VP to be somebody who knows where all the keys and the locks are in government. Yang would be not as able as someone else to walk into the top job as quickly. All right, that's all I got for now. I will talk to you tomorrow.